Hello, everyone. It's Ben Dunn. It's a Sunday, relaxing in my office, listening to podcasts on YouTube, and listening to one particular one where an artist, I won't say who he is criticizing another artist on his work. And this made me felt a little uncomfortable. Now, don't get me wrong, artists have been criticizing each other for a long time. However, I think it's really bad etiquette for one artist to critique another artist. It's just really one of those, to me, an unwritten rule that sort of like casting, the first stone, basically. We as artists, especially in comic books, are unique. We try to create a style that's identifiable of our own. Now, granted, there is something to be said about an artist who can really master, anatomy, backgrounds, perspective, things like that. And those arts are fantastic. I have no, I envy them, but there are artists who are also creating a style all their own. I mean, a lot of artists over the years, over the centuries, have moved the art form forward by just, experimenting with different designs. Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, many artists over the years have created their own unique vision. That holds true in comic books as well. Comic book artists, the ones that we remember, are the ones who created styles that we can easily identify with, easily, giving us something unique. You know, I just think it's really bad behavior and very bad etiquette. And you have to be kind of a big jerk to criticize another artist's, style, criticize his work. Art is something personal, something unique to that particular artist. It's one thing to convince people to pay for that particular art, but it's another thing for that artist itself to want to create something uniquely its own. I have no problem with other artists wanting to experiment, doing things like that. In fact, I highly encourage. I love seeing, different styles. I love seeing artists doing something new and different. Now, I'll grant it. There are certain styles, and certain artists that don't really gel with me. That's fine. I don't go around criticizing it. I don't go around lambasting it, saying that it's, unworthy of the public consumption. I let it be. I let the market speak for itself. And you should, I'm speaking to my fellow artists. You should, look inwards and see for yourself. Are you so confident in your ability that, you won't be able to take criticism yourself? I sort of look at, back in the day, there were rivalries among artists, and there's nothing wrong with that, to be honest. I mean, when we had a bullpen back in the day when artists were together, we made it our mission to try to outdo each other. We shared ideas. We looked at what our one artist did and how they did it, and how we could improve on that. I used to look at other people, artists, all the time and say, wow, I really like the way this guy drew this particular thing. I'm going to see how he did it and incorporate it in my own work. I'm always trying to improve ways to make my art better. I am not a great artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I've done well enough that I have a certain cadre of supporters, and I'm doing everything I can to win over new supporters and keep the old supporters happy and satisfied. I just don't see what the point is of criticizing somebody else's art. If you think about it, and this is something just as far as I'm concerned, would artists like Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, the legends of art now, would they be able to find employment now? with their particular styles? Do you think any comic book company, if Jack Kirby were to come up right now, showing his portfolio to somebody, do you think they'd be hired? I highly doubt it. The thing about it was that they were in the right place at the right time, creating a certain style that people really enjoyed. And this is what I think is, detrimental to us as a creative community, is our constant nagging, trying to improve somebody else's work, it's one thing, to talk to somebody personally on a one-to-one level, saying that you don't like this way looks to yourself, and find ways to, and then as another artist, being able to take criticism so that you can improve. I think unless you're an editor, unless you're paying somebody working for you, you really don't have any right to criticize somebody else's art. If I'm hiring you to create art for me, I have the right to criticize it because I'm paying you. But if you're an artist and you have no skin in the game of another person's creation, then really shut your mouth. Don't be a jerk. Don't be a-hole about it. Stick to your own work. Look in the mirror and say, is my art better than the art I'm criticizing? What right do I have to criticize somebody else's art? Yeah, you can talk about it, but you know what? I don't think that's a good look. I don't think that makes you a better person because you just happen to criticize somebody else's art. It seems very odd and strange to me why you would even bother to criticize somebody else's art unless you're paying for it. If you're paying for it, that's one thing. If I'm a consumer and I'm buying somebody's comic book and I don't like the art, I have a right to complain because I'm paying for it. But if you're a fellow artist criticizing another fellow artist, then you have no right to complain, really. You just need to shut your mouth and work on your own work. Make your work the best it can be. Win over new readers, win over new fans. That's what you should be focusing on, and not criticizing what other people are doing. It's none of your business. Really, we need to learn to mind our own business. We need to focus on what's important to us and to our customers. We know we cannot afford to spend and waste time criticizing the endeavors of others, because it's negative, it's detrimental, and it does not do anything to help improve the industry in comics and art in general. So anyway, that's really all I have to say. Hope you enjoy your Sunday. Until next time, this has been Dunn signing off.